Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the subnautical sensation herself,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility on Oceanos. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right, Oceanos is a card drafting game where you pilot your submarine underwater to find coral reefs, forgotten treasures, various sea life, and don't forget to collect crystals to upgrade your ship. All right, Will, so how do the rules change for two players?
So the rules for two players are on the back of the instruction book, so make sure to look there first. The drafting portion of this game, which I have to say is like the main draw of this game, is completely different for a two-player game. In a multiplayer, the active player or the captain hands out all the cards. Those players make decisions. The rest of the cards go to the captain, and he does or she does their thing to make their drafting choice. In a two-player game, both players grab the cards, make their decisions, and then hand off remainders to set up for the next round.
Right.
It's a very different dynamic.
Very different experience.
And I don't think it works very well, but let's move on to that because that's the major rule change. Everything else is the same.
Right, so there's no bot.
No. The only fruit in the sea are pineapples, not bananas. Sorry, Nana Man.
All right, so kind of leading off of that drafting change for two players, one of the biggest issues with the two-player experience is that one player can have more impact over the other player with the drafting aspect if they have more periscopes than the other player.
Yes, so here's how essentially it works. When it comes time to figure out how many cards you choose from, you'll get one card plus your periscope level. All periscopes start at 1, go up to 2, or max out at 3. So you will have 2, 3, or 4 cards. If somebody, say Sarah, has the maxed out periscopes, has 4 cards, and I never upgraded my periscope on my submarine, she'll make a decision. She can choose to toss a card at the end because you always have that. And then she determines all the cards I have for my choice for the next turn. So essentially she could be playing her game as well as mostly my game.
Right. So one player can, I mean, not exactly dictate because the cards are still drawn randomly.
Yes.
But if you see something that you know is going to be good for the other player, you can either take it for yourself, discard it, and then the remaining cards you give them, if it's equal to what they would draw, then they don't draw any more cards. So they are literally stuck with your discards,
your handoffs.
Your handoffs. The cards you don't want.
The refuge in the refuse in the sea
gets handed to the other player. That can be very unfun and frustrating.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
No. So the other issue with a two-player experience, like we've talked about in a lot of other games, the deck isn't any smaller for a two-player experience, but you're going to see fewer of them because there's only 2 players. You're going to be drawing fewer cards. So the mix of stuff that's all the icons that are on the cards, if you want to build a strategy around, let's say, coral, you could never draw coral in a two-player game because those cards are at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, one of the decisions they say around this whole game system is it's all based on probabilities. Probabilities of these things showing up versus these things showing up.
Right.
When you don't see a sizable portion of that, all those probabilities just go right out the window and they might as well not exist. And
yes,
that's where we see, in fact, every time we played, they said the rarest creatures are this, this, and this. I've seen them every single time.
Oh yeah,
regularly.
The large, I don't want to say
sharks
fish, but
and
yeah,
whales and
all of those are supposed to be rare. And I'm like, those are some of the most common things we saw. I was like, although there was one time you were just stuck with turtles. Turtles just really loved you on that round. But
I was playing a Ninja Turtle game.
Yeah, I think that was different.
And I lost.
So yeah, the probability gets really skewed when you're only going through a small portion of the games, of the cards. Okay, well, but let's move on to what it does well. At least in a two-player experience, it plays very quickly, assuming nobody has too serious of AP, analysis paralysis.
Yeah, this game is very deceiving because you feel like you should have lots of choices, and you kind of do, because you'll have to choose which strategy you're essentially going for and whether or not it's worth upgrading your sub at a specific time, and when you upgrade the sub, which part of the sub. So there's a lot of choice in there, and they do result in points. So it really leans towards, I should really think a lot about this game. However, the randomness says otherwise.
Yeah, it just completely undermines any strategy. So you're really just making tactical choices, which is, I have this hand of cards. What's the best card for me right now that's going to provide me with the most points? Because you have no guarantee on what the next hand is going to give you.
Yeah, it's kind of like risk management.
Yeah.
Should I do this? Is it risky? Is it not risky? What's the payoff? Okay, let's make that decision. And I think you had a slightly better experience when you stopped.
Yeah, when I stopped overanalyzing it and being like, well, there's so many different ways I can score, and I realized I can only score how the cards let me score. So don't overthink it. If I'm trying to build a coral reef and I don't get any cards that let me have coral, well, that's the end of that. So yeah, just making quick decisions and just moving along, just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Is really the best way to go.
Yeah.
The other thing we found, even with how there can be an imbalance between players on that card control aspect, we didn't experience any runaway leader. In fact, there were times where we thought the other was going to win, but they actually won. Like there was a point where I thought Will was going to win, but I won, and vice versa.
I think in all the games we played,
yeah,
we completely thought the other person was winning, only to find it was the reverse.
Right, and I will say there is endgame scoring aspects, so that's, I think, where we didn't take that into account, and that's pretty variable until the end of the game. So, yeah, at least with a two-player experience, you may feel like it's going well or not well, but you really just got to wait till the end to see.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to accessibility. Now, the card drafting is meant to be kept secret. Now, this is only if you have severe vision issues like Will. You will need assistive device or someone else outside the game helping you. But
yeah, we're talking beyond colorblind.
Yeah, this is beyond colorblind. In fact, we'll talk about how good it is for colorblind in a moment. But if you have severe vision issues like Will, you're going to need help. However, in a two-player experience, we found that I would just decide what cards I'm going to do and put those cards down and read all the cards to Will. And it worked out just fine.
Yeah, there was nothing that broke the rules or the intention of any part of the game when we played it that way. So you can access the game in a two-player game for someone with vision impairment as serious as mine.
Right, and that's again just for very serious.
Yes.
So that's good. So the good news is that was really the only thing we could find. What it does right, the icons are very distinct. They have very distinct placement on the cards. And so if you're colorblind, everything's going to work out. Even with the crystals where one's yellow and one's green, and they're both kind of on the bright side. One crystal has like an extra crystal to the left and the other one has an extra crystal to the right. So if you have two different ones, then, well, you have two different ones, even if you can't tell the colors apart.
Yeah. They don't tell you this, but they've divided up each card into 6 segments. Mm-hmm. Basically 2 columns of 3. And if a card is going to have a certain icon, like coral, well, in the upper left-hand corner, that's where it will appear if it's going to be on the card at all. Sometimes it can have 2 symbols, and then it'll have one below that one. If it has a kraken eye, that'll appear in the upper right-hand corner. And if it has a second one, to the left of it. Right. If it's going to have a fish or sea creature, it's going to be in the middle of the card, starting on the right-hand side. And so on for all these icons, so that if you know where to look, what to look for, that helps even further accessibility-wise.
And I think that helps everybody, because then you can just, at a glance, if you're looking for coral, you know to look in the upper left-hand corner. So you can just fan out the cards you've got, and you're like, oh, this has coral. And pull it out. Yeah, move it around and stuff. So they were very consistent, which is great, because unfortunately we've seen that in some games. They are not consistent about their placement of icons. But this was very, very consistent. The other thing that's really great for any type of vision disabilities is every single component is uniquely shaped. Even the two that are the closest, which is the fuel and the diver tokens, they're both round, but the fuel is slightly cut off at the top, so it's not perfectly round. Otherwise, everything is different sizes. The Kraken ones have 3 different sizes. Everybody's
all the parts of the submarine.
Yeah. Everybody's submarine is unique, and then every part of the submarine is different. They get larger as you upgrade your ship. So they did a really good job. Just everything for your basic colorblind challenges. This is great for it.
Yes.
All right. I think that covers everything.
All right. For 2 players, is Oceanos worth getting?
I would recommend no. I don't think most people are going to be satisfied with this experience at a 2-player count.
Same. One of the things that makes this game so great is the card drafting mechanism, and that's broken in a 2-player game, so
yeah,
I would avoid it for a 2-player game.
Agreed.
Accessibility.
I'd say yes. Again, unless you've got severe vision issues like Will, this game is very accessible. Even if you have trouble kind of with the submarine, the puzzle pieces might be a little tricky putting together, but they're not like really difficult. So I think that might be the only thing if you're having some issues like with mobility. But other than that, it's all really good.
Yeah, because some of the puzzle pieces do stick. Yeah, accessibility-wise, they managed to sneak in a lot of smart decisions to make it accessible on quite a few levels.
Yep.
It's sad, though, that for those with very severe disabilities, it's best for a 2-player, and I don't recommend it for a 2-player.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'd say accessibility-wise, they did a really good job.
Agreed.
Oceanos. Well, that will do it for us here at Rolling with 2. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And why would you ever dive under the sea alone when you can be Rolling with 2?